Hello! Welcome to It's Her Game, a shout out to all the amazing women in the gaming industry, no matter if it's mobile, PC, console, or esports. My name is Dominika Schott, and my goal here is to introduce you to those inspiring heroines of the gaming world. If you want to find out more about the podcast, make sure you check Facebook page It's Her Game or connect with me on Twitter at Dominika_Schott, spelling Dominika_SZOT. Also, don't forget to subscribe. And now, let's start! Hello everyone, and welcome to the next episode of It's Her Game. My today's guest is Natalie. Can you tell us something more about yourself?
Hi, yes. So I am a director at the Bristol Games Hub, a co-working space in Bristol with 4 other directors. And I've also been running lo-fi games with my brother for the last 7, maybe 8 years. And I do a lot of the admin and the actual game design and writing on that. So it gets pretty hectic. Well, it's just always completely different, to be honest.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm glad you found the time to actually be a guest on my show. I'm not sure if your day is 24 hours long, because to squeeze all those things in one day seems like an accomplishment itself. And on the top of that, you're doing many great things, and including blogging. Actually, I'm really into your blog.
Oh, thank you. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I love blogging. I've always had some, well, before working in games as well, I had a blog, so I've always just enjoyed blogging.
I love the part about the writing prompt generator,
Mm.
So I clicked that once, and the first thing that popped out was like the competitive mentor with a madness.
Oh.
So I hope it's like the, almost prophetic for the for the
False marketing,
podcast.
huh?
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know how well that actually works. I've not.
Yeah, exactly. You see, it's like yeah, it's like this 8 ball, you shake it and then there is like something that can tell you the future. So if you're happy with the results, then you embrace it fully and you're like, yes, that's exactly what I've expected and it definitely works. But in the other way, if it doesn't suit you well, then yeah, let's shake it another
That's
time. So
fine. Oh, I'm glad you're playing around with that.
yeah, absolutely. It's great. And I strongly encourage everyone to do that. So,
Yay.
they can know their true nature. I will definitely share the link once the podcast is published. So yeah, guys, do it. And it's truly inspiring. What are you doing? But what brought you to this place? What is your career path?
Um, I I actually never really knew what I wanted to do, to be honest with you. I didn't really have much of a plan. I never even went to university. So I started out with quite random jobs. I started in a computer game shop first, and then I was an ambulance driver, and then a delivery driver for hospitals and surgical instruments, a gardener, a TV extra, and then I went on to freelance copywriting while I was living abroad. And it was at that kind of time that my brother Chris's game started taking off as one of the first games on Steam Greenlight. Do you remember Steam Greenlight? It was like,
Yes, actually, it's funny, the game that I've published in my first job was the last game to be
ah,
approved on Greenlight. So
all
yeah,
right. So
I
like
do
opposite
remember it
ends.
very well. Exactly.
Okay, cool. Yeah, his was like the first batch to get in
Yeah.
on that. So um, I was just doing little bits and pieces for him voluntarily, just answering emails and tiny little things, little odd job things. And then when I got back to England, he asked me to work for him, and I became like a part-time assistant, like 2 or 3 days a week. And he then wanted me to do like the PR and marketing as well. And in all honesty, I was like completely out of my depth because it's just like not really anything I'd done before, and I'd not even worked in the games industry before. And Chris is quite a hands-off kind of boss, so I was just kind of trying to learn all this stuff as I went. But looking back on it, I'm really really grateful that he just kind of left me to it, and he didn't like tell me how to do everything, and he didn't mollycoddle me. I think he did more for me by just trusting me and letting me figure things out and make mistakes on my own. And I just feel like I grew much stronger for that. And then as I got better, it became full time and I took on more responsibilities and I started running the company and the business side of things. And then eventually I started doing the writing because I understood the game and we've both got the same stupid kind of sense of humor. So it kind of, yeah, it just evolved. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it evolved quite well,
Mm.
regarding the success of your game that you've released. So I guess it was, in the end, good career choice, even
Yeah.
if it was more that career chose you, right, than the
Yeah.
opposite
I
way.
am extremely lucky. I never even considered that I could work in games, that wasn't even on my radar, but I definitely would have worked more towards it earlier if I'd known.
No, same applies to me. I started, by accident, essentially, and then it turned to be the perfect place to like
Mm,
merge two things that I love, so like art and technology. And
yeah.
before, I really didn't see that coming from any perspective. So it was nice to discover that or to be discovered by gaming.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. It's just such a they don't it just doesn't seem like an option when you're like when they're talking about careers when you're in school and stuff like that. It's just not even well back when
Exactly,
we were
exactly. I guess
yeah.
that's one of the main issues now, right? Like the business side of games, it's not that well known, and the
Mm,
fact, like you've mentioned, like you just mentioned, the fact that people don't even take it under consideration because it is not being shared with them that they can apply to work in the industry,
mm,
especially considering the fact that how many facets gaming has now. Like you don't have to program the game to be part of it,
mhm.
right? So that's really great. And from your perspective, since you are running the studio, you are writing the narratives, being in charge of Bristol Games Hub, how do you manage the creative and business roles in the same time?
Um, it's it's definitely changed very much. We used to be a much smaller company. It was like four of us, and I think back then it it was actually a little bit easier because I would kind of write for the first maybe 2/3 of the day, and then I find I can only really write for that a certain amount of time anyway, and then my brain just kind of goes to mush. So it would be at that point that I would then kind of just take a break and start, I don't know, doing something like mind numbing, like reconciling accounts or do some like social media stuff where I feel like it uses a different part of your brain. And it actually worked out quite well in that way. But I think it's all gotten a little bit more mental now that we've grown to like 18 people at the moment. Um, so it's a little bit more like you're spread thin because other people are relying on you to be able to do their jobs. But I think it's just helped to just hire some really great people.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's really interesting what you've said about activating different parts of the brain, because if you look on what you're doing, it might seem like she has so much on herself, right? And then it looks that one role is helping another, right?
Mm, yeah.
Yeah. So you've started in absolutely different industries, and how does the experience from them helping you now?
Um, Probably not that much, but I would say maybe a little bit. Like, I said I used to be a delivery driver.
Mm.
That was actually for my family business. So that was another absolutely tiny business. It was literally my mum, my dad, and then one other employee and me. So that meant that I kind of ended up doing lots of little other bits and pieces. Like I
Mhm.
even serviced some other surgical instruments and I'd help out in the office doing admin things and invoicing. And I think that just kind of helped me maybe know at least a little bit about how to organize and run things. And then after that, when I moved to Thailand for like a year and a half, and while I was living there, that was when I first got into blogging because I had quite a lot of free time. Well, it's quite like cheap to live there, so you don't have to work
Mhm.
like full hours. So I'd
Mhm.
spend some of my time like exploring places off the beaten track and practicing my photography, and then I got quite interested in learning about how to make my own website and the basic coding and SEO and formatting my blogs a little bit better. When I started out, I was just writing like walls of text that just it's like really hard to read. So I think that helped a little bit with the marketing side of things because I think it just gives you a bit of an eye for that.
So you've been basically like circling around writing for a really long time before getting into gaming, right?
Actually, not too much. It was kind of that was maybe the first time I started getting into writing. I guess that was maybe like 2 years before.
So when was the first time that narrative design, seemed to be your thing?
I think it did take a little while. It was quite gradual because at the beginning I found it very difficult and I did struggle because I had no idea. Well, I had no experience with writing games. I mean, I tried writing like short stories and things like that before, but games is like a whole different thing. And it's not like there are a lot of like learning materials available to teach yourself or like there just wasn't much around to learn from. So and not on top of that, our game isn't exactly like a normal genre. It's very sandboxy and kind of procedural, so it kind of requires a different kind of writing rather than traditional story writing. And so I just kind of had to study study games, just play lots of games and study how they did certain things and just study some basic game design books. But I think as I started getting better at it and understanding it, that was when I started to enjoy it and know it's my thing. And I think when I started being able to push our software and try and get more out of the things I could do with our game and times when I'd just be writing little events and just giggling to myself at like stupid jokes I was making. I think that was definitely the sort of point just when I started enjoying it because I got better at it, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's cool to have, brother in your company, to be in like the small environment that you can actually be inspired from the daily conversation, right? To write something.
You mean like sibling dramas?
Yeah. Well, it's you to say that. But would you recommend any resources actually
Mm,
to be inspired from, like to get
mm.
the inspiration from?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, my favorite book that I've read so far is Jesse Shell's game design. It might be called The Art of Game Design or something like that, but it's Jesse Shell's book, and I just found that one just I don't know, it just really helped me understand game design, and I think that's useful to all parts of working on a game, not just writing. I think if you're an artist, yeah, a lot. I think it applies to a lot of different areas of game design. So um, that was my favorite book, and then well, I guess my own website. I've been trying to write out the things I learned specifically for my area, which is non-linear things, and
Mhm.
that's just little things I've taken from other games I've played.
So essentially, playing games, right, would be the good
Yeah,
recommendation.
yeah, I think so, to be honest. That's
And
been
then
my best
making
way.
notes. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, just that is my best way of learning, just and it's great because you have an excuse to play games. It's just like, "I'm
ex-
studying." Um,
exactly.
so, yeah, I just make notes on the kind of, dialogue that that are in games, like for world building things, that ambient dialogue that is making the game seem alive and making the people seem alive. I quite like to just make notes on the kinds of thing people are saying in the game and
Yeah, it's really interesting, especially that you put all of that knowledge that you've gained on your yeah, podcast is mine. Sorry, on your on your on your blog. Yeah. So I really enjoyed reading that. I think it's really full of knowledge and really interesting for those who'd like to embark on the journey of creating nonlinear narratives. Especially that, like you said, this is like the collection of your observations, experience, etc. So I guess it's also helpful to make a log, right, of what you've learned by far.
Yeah, definitely. Also, thank you so much. That's really nice of you. You're so kind to say such nice things about my blog. But yeah, it's like, I mean, I'll be honest with you, it's probably more selfish reason for having it than me being some kind of good Samaritan and putting putting free articles out there, because it's kind of, it helps me learn and it helps me remember the things that I've learned. And I've just always learned better by writing things up in my own words and writing up my notes into kind of guides for myself. This, and I have like checklists and things on there that I can look back on. So yeah, I find it helpful because also I can have a tendency to forget some of the things I've learned if I've gone on to a different part of my job. And for example, translation is something I've written on my blog. I'm not going to be doing that for maybe a couple of years, and it's good that
Hmm.
I've now got those reminders of those things I learned, like my mistakes I learned from. At least I have them written down, and I can look back and be like, okay, I need to not do that again.
Yeah. Yeah, so we forgot to mention the title of the games that you've released, Kenshi. So can you give us the example of what type of notes are you making?
For example, I think Witcher 3, that was one of my favorites for, it's just a classic game, isn't it? It's just brilliant. So I made a lot of notes on just walking around the cities, and you've got the ambient dialogue from all the villages and things, just blurting out random things. There's actually, it seems like a really easy thing to do, but there is quite a knack to it, quite a balance of what would sound normal for someone to just randomly blurt out when you walk past them. So I find that sort of thing, and just seeing other games and what kind of things their inhabitants are saying, I find just making little notes on that and making my own kind of little formulas of the types of things people can say that will make sense. And yeah, so that's one of the main things I make notes on.
So you need to be pretty, vigilant once you play. And it's
Mm.
funny how people consider working in gaming as, play games, right? And then you find out yourself sitting there playing, scribbling something, with your notepad, etc. And it's not the same kind of fun. It's
Yeah.
fun, but
Yeah,
still.
it does ruin it a little bit for you, because
Yeah.
now I can't play a game. Even if I play a game without the intention of making notes, I will still end up like going, "Oh, I have to write that down," like grabbing my
Exactly.
notepad and pausing it. So just kind of ruined for me a little bit now, but it's still good.
Exactly. So, yeah, it's the price you need to pay. So
Yeah.
live with it now.
And at least you don't have to feel like guilty playing games, because you are actually learning from playing games, so
Learning,
it's
of
fun.
course. Mhm. So one of the titles you were working on was Kenshi, and for those of you who don't know, it's a massive RPG game with endless maps, multiple characters. So is it the type of game you enjoy playing yourself too?
It's actually not really the type of game I'd play. I tend to play more heavily narrative games. So, like I've just mentioned, The Witcher 3. I tend to play few but big games like Skyrim, Dragon Age. Recently just played The Last of Us. Don't judge me, I'm a bit late to it. But I just finished that, and that was absolutely amazing. I think basically my favorite parts in a lot of games are um, these kind of little side stories you come across. So, like in Fallout, you have all of those vaults. Um, Same with Skyrim, you'll just find like horrific kind of murder scenes, and you'll be like, I don't know, investigating them and being like, what happened here? How did everybody die? I really, really love that kind of thing. And I think The Last of Us also had um, some of those kind of things, and I absolutely loved just reading every single log I came across, every single little diary entry, and studying every single room and all of the corpses in it, and where were they led? Oh, this person was chained to a pipe with arrows in him. What happened? And I just love studying all that kind of thing. So they're the kind of games I like to play, and Kenshi is very different to that. It's very much, it's more hands off, and it's more about the player generating their own kind of story, and very, very subtle storytelling as well. So yeah, I play very different games.
So yeah, Kenshi is more like procedural, right?
Mm,
And more indirect with storytelling, etc. Like you said. So yeah,
mm.
different. So it's actually interesting here. You know, you took up this challenge to create something and get out from your comfort zone, basically. So.
Yeah, it's definitely one thing I've struggled with is that like I with Kenshi, I'm always veering towards wanting to write quests,
Mhm.
and we're like strictly no quests, and I'm always trying to like I just feels like right to me to have quests, and I'm always trying to kind of veer towards it, and then Chris has to be like, no. No quests. So yeah, that's definitely one of my struggles, but I've kind of learned now, and it's become kind of my specialty is yeah, just writing more hands off and lighter kind of storytelling.
So, what was the main challenge while creating the characters for Kenshi? I believe it's gonna be somehow associated with, you know, this urge to create the quests in the game.
Yeah, there's definitely that. That is definitely a part of one of the challenges for that. And it's just for the procedural nature, like we said, you as a writer, it means you have quite limited control over scenarios. So, for example, I can't really control when the player is going to meet this NPC I'm writing, or what the NPC is going to be doing. You know, I can't make scenes like that an NPC has just been, I don't know, robbed by bandits or something, and they're on the road or injured or something. I can't make that kind of thing. So you're quite limited on those sorts of um, scenarios you can manufacture, which means you have to kind of try and omit some kind of detail, and that makes it difficult to add a lot of depth. But there's ways you have to get around it, but it's just very different kind of writing. Yeah, that's been my biggest challenge, and I've just had to try and kind of learn a type of writing to get around it, and learn about using tools like gossip and things like item descriptions to maybe build stories instead of direct conversations, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's more like you're, you know, creating bubbles that are they self universe or something like that, and then you know your character is approaching them, getting to know the legend about the character, move
Mm.
forward, right, without like missing something if they don't meet someone on the way.
Yeah, yeah, like that kind of thing's really hard because I can't really tell what things the player has done at this point when they're meeting this character they're talking to. Yeah, it just can get very confusing.
So, what did you learn about the narrative design while working on Kenshi? How do you think it would influence your work on Kenshi too?
So I've learned a lot from Chris. He's kind of like the master when it comes to game design. So he has taught me quite a lot about getting around missions and quests using game goals instead to kind of dangle carrots for to pique the player's curiosity. So instead of forcing missions and things on the player, it's making them want to go seek out like legends or bounties themselves. So that's one of the biggest things I've learned, and we normally do that through like ambient dialogue and maybe item descriptions like posters and things. Um, so yeah, that's one of the biggest things I've learned, and then just organizing myself better because I think it's important to just try and establish the information you're trying to convey rather than just writing too much dialogue and long walls of text and things like that. Um, just trying to establish what you're trying to convey and in what way you can say it, and allow the player to access that information. The biggest thing that I've kind of mastered, I would say, is making reusable content, because a lot of our players play our game for like 1,000 hours, and that's quite a lot of pressure to make enough
Yeah,
content for them for 1,000 hours. And I'm just one person, so
yeah, no
I've learned to,
pressure.
yeah. I've kind of, what with it being a procedural game, I've kind of learned to make dialogue that kind of goes in all different directions and loops back round and has lots of different variants. So you could have the same scenario repeat maybe like 10 times, and hopefully in theory the player shouldn't really notice. It should seem like a different event just because it will play out differently each time. So that's one thing I've managed to get quite quick at doing now. I can whip them out pretty quickly. That's probably my biggest my proudest achievement in writing.
Yeah, it's super important because if you approach the same character or well well even better example any different character and ask about something and the person tells you the same thing that the one 10 hours ago and you
Mhm.
notice, then it kind of ruined the experience, right? So it's a
Yeah.
great mastery of creating games like
Mm,
yours to know
yeah.
how to do that. Yeah.
It's quite immersion breaking otherwise, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So, would you be able to explain the creative process behind that? How do you start creating a character, those like complex loops, etc.?
Um, Creating characters, I actually use experiences in my own life and people in my own life sometimes. So I think it's important to try and do lots of things in your life to have these experiences in some ways, and then maybe even just watching a lot of TV as well. I know that sounds like I might be stealing characters, but I think it's really important to just like absorb like other worlds and things. So um, I do read a lot of books and watch a lot of Netflix. I've been actually watching quite a lot of Korean shows lately, and I feel like they have entirely different kinds of characters. So that's been really great inspiration. Just trying to absorb different kind of types of programs, and then you've seen my character writing prompts as you were talking about. That's when I start getting more desperate. When I really really start drying up of ideas. So I probably made that at a time when I was feeling quite desperate. um
Thank
so
you, because I felt, inspired by the fact that I was appointed a mentor, and then you're telling me it was out of desperation. So
sorry.
it's okay, I have to live with it.
But yeah, I tend to turn to prompts basically sometimes, and at times that prompt could be just like a weird quirk that someone's got, or a strange like speech impediment or something like that, and then
Mhm.
kind of just evolving them from that. um I think that might be one of the the best ways actually to start a character, to just take one little thing and then just let them kind of take off from that.
So there is like a lot to the creative process of yours, and
Mhm.
I'm really super interested to get to know more about the process itself. How do you start creating a character, for example?
Mm. Um, I'm still learning different methods, and I'm still kind of evolving my own methods as I kind of experiment and study more, to be honest. But I'm currently trying to use archetypes a little bit more, just to make sure that I have a more diverse cast of characters, because I think it's quite easy otherwise to just keep writing the same type of character that you're most comfortable with writing, and then you just end up with quite a flat game where everyone talks the
Mhm.
same and acts the same. So I've been trying to do that just to diversify the world a little bit more. Um, and then just trying to work a lot around the character's motivation or goal. Like, let's say, for example, you wanted their motivation to be revenge, then you can kind of fit that into your own lore and make a backstory for them based on that. And it just really helps to develop their character. Um, but also I kind of have like my magic checklist that I use, which I have in like my last blog post. Um, it's just some really essential questions that I will answer for each character I write, and it just really kind of helps me. It just solidifies them and helps me understand exactly how they behave and what makes them them. So that has helped me loads. But I think kind of like I said with the prompts, I think the most important thing that I've learned is to just write. And I know that sounds like a bit simple, but you'd be surprised. When I first started out, I put so much pressure on myself to just like instantly write good stuff. And then I just sit there like stressing out and not ever writing anything because I'd be too busy just, I don't know, trying to like push out these good ideas. But I found that you kind of you just have to like not judge your ideas and just get them out whatever hits your head, and it will just kind of evolve. It's like, say, artists, those first few lines they sketch out are not going to look good. They're not going to look anything like their like a work of art or the finished piece,
Hmm.
right? It
Yeah.
takes like a lot of refinement. So I think it's important to accept that your work isn't going to look good straight away, and just do it and don't judge it. And I think since I did that, I must work like 5 times faster. It's it's just been like this golden moment for me.
Nice. So we've shared something here that's, gonna kick off the careers of many people then. And suddenly no delays in delivering the, triple A titles, etc. So thank you, Natalie. We have something here.
Yay.
Yeah. So what type of characters do you like to create the most then?
Mm. I think the type I like, they tend to be like the kind of asshole characters, the sultry ones that've got a bit of an attitude.
Hmm.
Like if you were to think if a cat was a person, then they'd be a cat. Like they're just
Okay.
assholes. But I kind of love them. I think that's the kind of person I can write most easily and I veer towards because they're just fun and they can be cheeky, they take no crap, they do what they want. Maybe it's the kind of person I want to be. um, they're just like they're like straight to the point, and you can just write some really fun, cheeky banter with them. Um, just make some funny conversations, and I think yeah, they're definitely my favorite.
Yeah, maybe just drop this archetype approach because
Mm.
I really would like to see the game that would have just cat characters in it. So I don't think that would be flat.
Oh, I can give you that.
Yeah,
But then
looking forward.
it
Yeah,
might just
we
be a big drama with all these cat people having arguments all the
yeah.
time.
But yeah, I would still bet on that. I'd still have a play. So yes, please. Now we have that
I
on
would
the
love to see
recording.
that.
Exactly. And if you were to compare yourself to one of the game heroes, who
Mm.
would that be and why?
I don't want to sound like big-headed because she's really cool, and I know I'm not, but probably Eris from Final Fantasy VII, just
Mhm.
because I like to try and be positive and not take life too seriously and have fun. It probably sounds ridiculous, but like the way I dress, um, it's just my husband, right? He isn't really a gamer, and he's never seen Final Fantasy VII before. And I was playing the remake a few months ago, and he walked in and saw me playing it, and he was like, "Oh, so that's why you dress the way you do." And he saw Eris on the screen, and then yeah, so it just kind of made me realize that I think I've been subconsciously copying her all these years, like
Nice.
wearing the boots and the short jacket and the long
Mhm.
skirts and dresses. So yeah, my fashion style is 90s video game character. Uh,
And what about the fighting skills then?
oh, I wish. It's like I have like the giggly, annoying parts of her, but not like the badass, brave fighting skills.
Yeah, the giggling personality, that's something you cannot learn over years. So, that's something you have to be born with. And the
Yeah.
badass fighting skills, yeah, let's say you can develop them still, right?
I wish though. That would be amazing.
So thank you. And the last one thing, what would be your advice to young girls who are about to enter the industry?
Um, I think not to get too hung up on qualifications, and when you look at a job listing and you see the requirements and you think they're too high and maybe you feel intimidated, you can't go for that. I would say ignore that. Don't listen to that voice in your head. Just do it. It doesn't hurt. Because I think it's important to know that it's not always that important that you meet all the requirements. Sometimes maybe somebody else applying for that job does have those requirements, but they're just not the right fit. Never underestimate like how far a bit of like passion for that particular job will get you. I think if you just focus on really nailing your application and showing that you're a good fit for the company, then I think just having the right attitude carries a lot of weight, and it's not just about skill. And you'd also be surprised how many people apply for a job that also don't have the job requirements. So yeah, I think just go for it. And also don't forget your personal projects as well. If you don't have any job experience, I think personal projects also hold like a lot of weight. They show, if anything, they show that you've got self motivation and autonomy, and I think they're really, really important. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I can just, say that I totally agree.
Mhm.
And thank you for your time. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here today, no matter where in the world or at what point of your career stage you are. I'm truly curious about what this podcast brings to you today. Was it a spark of inspiration for your next project? A much needed kick to send this one more application for a dreamed job position? Or maybe we simply had a chance to accompany you in your morning coffee routine. Connect with me via email or on Twitter and share your thoughts. Make sure you also like It's Her Game page on Facebook and follow the Instagram account It's Her Game _podcast for exclusive content and to make sure you won't miss the next episode. Have a wonderful day. Bye!